My name is Arthur Sikula. I'm with Orobic Stone Contracting. I'm broadcasting from New York, our New York offices. Stefano Lombardy is with me. He's in his offices in Carpenedolo, and we're here to discuss and speak with you about the natural stone of Lombardy or Lombardia, and we will proceed.
We are an 82 years old business, a family run by the same family since 1938.
1938, right on cue. Franco is 82. I know that because they had their 82nd year-old anniversary, or 80th anniversary 2 years ago. And Franco was born the day after his father started the business. We have 4 siblings in the company. Franco designed his company with his children. His children were his business partners. Stefano is the CEO and chairman. Giuliano, the second born, is the geologist. Anna, our in-house design designer. Third born. Daniela is the engineer. She runs the engineering department in the factory. So Franco always goes with it. As I said, he designed his business with his children. It's really quite wonderful. So we'll be speaking to you today. This is actually an NSI, Natural Stone Institute presentation. For those of you who are watching, who are architects, members of the AI, you can actually use this site by putting in your AIA number. Be sure you have your AIA number. The AIA numbers are, just one way of getting accreditation. It's also a presentation which is approved by the Interior Design CEC and for landscape architects, and also any of you who are watching from the National Kitchen and Bath Association. So from any one of those 4 associations, you can get your continuing education credits. Also, if there are any other CEU types of programs that you would like to take advantage of, you can go to naturalstoneinstitute.org/university. So if you don't actually have the AIA numbers handy right now, you can email Stefano and I, either Stefano and I, probably better me, since I'll be administrating this, at art, or I should say art at Gherardi.it, GHIRARDI.it. So we'll be talking about specifically only the stone, the natural stone that comes from the Lombardia region. We wanted to do this especially because of the reason why you're probably looking at this online. Obviously, we've all been very hit hard by COVID. We're not able to travel. So this is somewhat of a tour of Lombardia in stone, and it gets us to see some things, even though we can't see them in person this year. Hopefully next year that will change, and we are going to look at not only the geological formations within Lombardia, but also share information about the ranges of uses for each one of those stones, their applicability, and some of those actual photographs of built projects. So we'll talk about the geological formations. I've organized this in a manner where we'll look at calcareous stones first, and then we'll look at siliceous stone, and all of which are available within Lombardy. So we're divided into about 4 modules, as I discussed. The first module will be talking about formation. And the slide on the left is really the beginning of the formation, at least in terms of calcareous stone. On the left-hand slide, you can see towards the left-hand side of the left-hand side. You can see that there's pretty much a contribution of minerals and soil from the erosion of the landmass, which would enter into the marine environment of water, the sea primarily, and in this case, the sea life, in other words, the plants and the actual fish or shell life, would then contribute towards this minestrone, so to speak, that will settle and create the actual limestone or the beginning of the calcareous class. On the right-hand side, you'll see both on the right-hand side of the right-hand side, you'll see the introduction of a magma chamber of volcanic heat and molten rock, which is, of course, the igneous rock. And at the top of that, you will see more of the siliceous types of stone. So in other words, you have the bottom layer of limestone, sandstones, the siliceous stones, on top of that with shale and slate, and the heat from the magma will cause the morphing of those into, the marbles and quartzites. That's pretty much the basics. In other words, the metamorphic stones, in essence, and I'm oversimplifying for the geologists out there, will say, well, there's more to it. But what I'm pretty much saying here is that it's the heat contribution from the magma that causes that changing of the stone from sedimentary into metamorphic, irrespective of whether it's calcareous or siliceous. The book that you see on the right-hand side of the screen is a wonderful book. I'm very old-fashioned. I like turning pages. So the 3-leaf binder is available, but you can also get the online version and file for your use in the office. It's an invaluable resource. That very simple chart that you see on the left-hand side is from the book. So once again, we're starting off with Botticino, Botticino and Botticino Classico and Botticino Fiorito. It's probably one of the most famous limestones that are in the Lombardic region, and was pretty much formed, this type of limestone especially, it's formed in almost a Caribbean-like seabed 200 million years ago. It was, basically, the region between the Po Valley and the foot of the Alps looked 200 million years ago very much like the Caribbean, just south of the United States. And obviously, over the 200 million years, what I just described earlier, about 3 minutes ago, pretty much formed the limestone. In this case, with the Botticino and the warm cream beige color. And if you look very hard, you can see some of the proto-historic marine life fossils. And depending on the bench, you will see different kinds of fossils. Towards the bottom, you might find, the older fossils, and towards the higher benches, you might find different fossils of a more recent vintage, but still pretty old because they're fossils. So these deposits then became, as I said, the alpine chain. northern part of Italy, and specifically for this presentation, Lombardy. Botticino, of course, it's a highly compact carbonate rock. It has very fine traces of magnesium, but it's a very, very fine, dense green. It's classified, for the sake at least of the North American standards, as a type 3 high-density limestone. Classico is famous for its color and the presence of, as I said, fossils, but also these really lovely golden veins, and it's pretty distinguishable. I make a little bit of a distinction here between Botticino Fiorito and Botticino Classico. You know, the previous slide has, you know, the presence of the veins. I've exaggerated some of the features on this slide to describe the differences between Fiorito and Botticino. And then you can see the veins don't exactly disappear, but there's a very slight trace of veining in the Fiorito. And what's wonderful about the Fiorito is that if you're looking for a more monolithic application, for instance, in exterior cladding, you might want that, maybe you won't. We've been doing projects now for exterior cladding of the Classico, where the veining is very much present, and it's quite beautiful. But that's the difference, the distinguishing difference, in essence, between the Fiorito and the Classico. The more natural representation of the Botticino is, as you can see on the slide on the left-hand portion of this. I've got a sample over here of the Botticino Classico. You can see it here. I'll bury my face. It's not about me, it's about the stone. But I'll talk behind the sample. You can see that the fine features of the product, this is in a seta finish or silk finish that we are liking very much, because it brings out the features of the stone, particularly in the Botticino, which may not be as present with a home finish. So we rather like that feature in the stone. So we're looking at ways to promote the beauty of that. On the right, you can see within the quarry, if you can distinguish the figures towards the center of that photograph, you'll see the size of the blocks that are actually extracted. This one is, you know, obviously going to be cut into more manageable sizes for shipment, approximately 3 by 6 meters, which would be the ideal size for us. And it's important for you to know that in terms of what is going to become the ideal yield with the least amount of waste. The Orobic limestone formations, the Membro del CALCAREOUS is you know, commercially known as the Arrovescato Orobico. Now, it's called marmo, and I always say this: the marmisti in Italy. I think we do ourselves a disservice because we call everything marble. It's not. This is not typically or geologically marble. It's more in the Bergamo region. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's a sedimentary stone. As I said, it's not geologically marble. And it's a marble, of course, is a metamorphic stone. This is sedimentary. Its formation had very little to do with heat. And what you're seeing here are the layers and the features, which are pretty much the stratification of the shell life and the other mineral contributions that were made by the landmass to give it its visual features. It's a, once again, it's a limestone, okay? And the red features here are and it comes in different tones, more gray predominance in some benches, but I personally happen to like the red features. I think that's what makes it very distinguishable. And then we have the breccia. The breccia in the area where we have our quarries is also sedimentary. It's formed as by virtue of that definition, calcareous marine environment. It's much more conglomerate than the Botticino, although it's born out of the same corona as the Botticino. These are composed from fragments averaging greater than 2 millimeters to larger size, angular shapes, fragments, and indicating that the material has not been transported far from its source. So it's really continental in nature. The environment within which it is formed, sometimes there are stream channels within it, and if you get deep enough in the quarries, sometimes you see that. The sedimentary breccia may be formed by submarine debris. Sometimes it's formed by sinkholes, collapses within caves, and that's what gives it its wonderful variation in color, texture that we see. As we can see here, with the breccia marina blue and the breccia onichata, it's once again, it's from the same formation of the corona from the Botticino, but because of the actual formation that I just described, the violent formation of the stone in collapses or transports, the movement in the formation of the stone is pretty much visually characterized by what you're seeing in these slides. And we have more variations in the breccia of Classico, breccia Redo Chiara, breccia Damiscata, and the breccia Gold. Once again, it's not marble, it's sedimentary limestone. The conglomerate end of this is a conglomeration. I mean, some would refer to Chepo as breccia also, but it's a particular conglomerate formation of the environment. It's in the it's right along the shore. It's mined on the shore, the western shore of Lago di Iseo. The conglomerate deposits, they're discontinuous along the western shore of the lake. As I said, the material consists predominantly of Norian dolomite and its angular fragments, and that's what gives it its strength. But it's cemented together by this fine gray calcareous cement, which is really where the limestone content of this stone comes from. The Romans love this. It's a little bit absorptive. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for freeze-thaw cycles for exterior cladding, but it's a wonderful material. It's particularly dense, not as dense as the Botticino, but it is a cemented, dolomite once again. But it's not considered strictly to be a breccia. And when I say it's brecciated, that's really the active, the verb of the stone contributing towards the noun of the stone. That's a better way to describe it. So it has wide applications, and I'll show you those in a bit. So, with the metamorphic, once again, you get the exterior pressures from the upper crusts of the stone layers. And then you have the stone, which is going to be turned into metamorphic stone. In this case, marble, because we're talking about calcareous stone, with the heat from the magma from below. And once again, it's the heat from below, from the magma source, that distorts and forms the beautiful marbles that we have throughout Italy, but most particular in the Lombardic region. We only have one marble within Lombardy, and I'll show you that in a moment. And so Condolia is the only stone that's technically classified as a marble in all of Lombardia. It's not commercially available, and the reason why it's not commercially available is by a medieval, really, towards Renaissance agreement that was made between the Archdiocese of Milano with the quarry. The quarry's name is La Fabbrica del Duomo because it's only used for the Duomo. And some of you have been or visited the Duomo in most recent times. You would note that some of the pinnacles and spires that are more present towards the roof portion of the Duomo had eroded over many years. And so the quarry of the Congolia is used specifically just for the cathedral. You can't get it for anything. They won't sell it to you. I don't know this for a fact, but I mean, if you were to get it, it would probably be black market stone. And I'm not encouraging you to do that. All I'm saying is that, you know, this is specific to cathedral and is the only, the reason why I show it here. Obviously, Monmouth is a commercial enterprise, but we're also educational. It's just good to know that the only marble that is technically marble that's available in Lombardia is that it's Congo. You won't find any other marble. So sedimentary, you know, defined within the siliceous classification would be stone that's formed in essence from silica. What is silica? Silica is sand by virtue of its name, siliceous. So the minerals are formed from the sand. The grains of this formation through centuries of deposits were formed in lakes, rivers, or on the ocean floor if they're contributed from the land mass. These elements, they group together with the minerals in the quartz and they compress into quartzite. Also, what's sedimentary stone is the Sardico sandstone. It's a rock comprising mostly of minerals, as I said, once again, mostly from sand. For those of you who are watching from the United States, you know, particularly from the Midwest out towards the eastern seaboard, we used a lot of sandstone in the east, brownstone. Because of its nature, it's used a lot for exterior cladding during the turn of the century, and that was pretty much inherited from the use that was done, that was practiced in ancient times and through the Middle Ages. This particular sandstone is from the Bergamo region, and it's along the foothills of the Alps. The quartzite and serpentine and gneiss are metamorphic stones. We have plenty of metamorphic stones. Once again, marble is a metamorphic, calcareous stone. And there's only one marble, as I said a few minutes ago. But there's an abundance of metamorphic stone that's siliceous, and we'll show you those in a moment. And once again, formed by the magma because of the heat. Gneiss Occhiadino, the eye-catching by its name, Italian, and this is from the area of Rato Malenko. It's a blush, dark, gray stone. Some folks, once again, I think we do, the Marmisti do ourselves the service. They market this as granite. It's not granite. Granite's, you know, an igneous stone. And we don't have granite necessarily in Lombardy. We have gneiss. So I think one of the reasons why the Marmisti in Lombardia, for instance, say it's granite is because locally they have gneiss. And it's really a sandstone that has been converted by virtue of the metamorphic process, heat from the magma, to create the tectonic compressions that create, you know, the visual qualities that you see in this stone. The serpentine stone from Sondrio in Valmolengo is also a metamorphic rock. The layers are foliate, and they are light brown in color towards the silvery gray area, but by virtue of the mica that's contained within the stone, you get these really wonderful sparkly veins in the serpentine formation of the Sangrio Serpentino. It's very beautiful, and especially when you polish it, you get these really wonderful features out of the stone. The gneiss, on the other hand, is a medium to coarse grain. The first slide I showed you of gneiss, you can actually see some finer versions of this, and I saw it just the other day, and I'm going to show you some examples later that I have right downtown New York of some very nice Lombardia gneiss. The only igneous rock that we have, granite of course, is igneous rock, but we don't have that in Lombardia, as I mentioned before, but we do have porphyry. The porphyry deposits are formed by volcanic action. So there's two types of volcanic action. You either have the subterranean intrusive igneous rock, which is well below the surface, and that's one kind of igneous rock. And then you have the other kind of igneous rock, which is the extrusive part, and that rock is formed from when the magma actually comes out of the volcano in the form of lava, and then it becomes, in this case, porphyry. Porphyry is, the grains are very, very tiny, and, in some cases tinier than some of the granite that you'll see. And it's quite beautiful. It's very, very tough. You might recall, if you've ever visited any of the Egyptian art museums around the world, that a lot of the sculptures done by the Egyptians were done in porphyry because the pharaohs liked it that way. It demonstrated their permanence because the stone was so permanent. And the same for the Roman emperors. Very hard to cut, but not unlike any of the other ancient cultures, we're still trying to figure out how they built certain things because of what we think in terms of our superior technology. And we need to use pretty sophisticated cutting tools, and in order to cut porphyry today. So we wonder, how they did that. Even in the pre-Bronze Age, how did they cut this stuff? Pretty amazing. You can see Porfido Valacamonico is where this is from. This is higher up in the depths of the Italian Alps, just south of the Swiss border. We get some pretty large pieces of porphyry from this area. Typically in other areas where they have porphyry, they're at best large boulders. But this stuff is big enough where you can get some slabs. So just as a recap, we're showing along the top of that array of samples that I have here. You can see from the calcareous sedimentary stones, we have the Botticino across the top, and as it drifts down towards the middle of that range, the Brescia, and then of course the Ceppo. And then along the silicious qualities, we have sandstone, the Dorado, Valmolengo, quartzite, the Serpentino, and then generating towards the Valmolengo gneiss, and of course, very strong silicious igneous rock, the Porfido. So the region of Lombardia, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, in the northern part of Italy, as you can see on the right-hand side, it gives you some context within the country of Italy itself. And then on the left-hand side, the regions within Lombardia. The Botticino Classico, Fiorito, is, pretty much a little bit north and within pretty much the Po Valley in the hills, towards the hills. It's, of course, Botticino, from the village of Botticino. The region is, as a matter of fact, it's about a 40-minute drive from our office, 45 minutes or a half hour if Stefano is driving. And it's just west of the Lago di Garda, and that's where we have our quarries for Botticino, Classico, and Viridiana. We like to say in the stone industry, where you have good stone, you also have good wine. So Botticino has some very nice vineyards that I've been to, and I can't wait to visit again. It's I think, pretty much a rule of thumb. And obviously, the lime from the limestone, in particular, contributes towards the wonderful nutrients that are in the soil that create the distinctive flavors regionally throughout Italy, but especially in Lombardy. So the Brescia Ora comes from our quarries in Gavardo, and that's a little bit further northeast of the Botticino region, and just a little bit closer to the western shore of Lago di Garda. It's a very beautiful area. You can see Gavardo is just a stunning little, it's a village. It's just very beautiful. The Arabiscato Orobico is, I'm shifting back once now again. You might recall I said earlier that it's from the area of Bergamo. It's a little bit northeast of Bergamo, further up into the hills, where this wonderful metamorphic, I should say, sedimentary stone comes from. Once again, quite beautiful. I'm giving you a little bit of a tour here of what it looks like above the ground rather than just showing you the quarries. I'm going to show you those too, because I'm sort of homesick. I've said this. I said this to my wife last night, and I said, "No, I'm homesick." She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "This is the first time I haven't been in Italy for the show in 8 years, and it's bothering me that I'm not there." So, after I had that conversation with her, I decided to add some slides about how beautiful the countryside is. In any event, Chappa di Gre comes from the west shores of another lake, much smaller, Lago di Iseo. It's also a very, very beautiful area, and as you can see from these slides, the conglomerate stone comes from the west bank of the lake. Going into Sarnico, once again, it's just west of Botticino, very close to Botticino, but it's not part of Brescia area. It's part of, I guess, technically Bergamo. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, Stefano. But I think, really at least it's really the west bank towards one of the Iseo is called Bergamo, and that's where the sandstone comes from. And once again, very beautiful. That's the Lago di Iseo. And then we get further up. Now we're just south of the Swiss border, as you can see. It's well within what they call the limestone chain of the Italian Alps, but it's further even north of that. This is from the Sondrio area north of Bergamo. It's also a very beautiful area. This is where you really get to see the Dolomiti, and it's Dolomite. That's really the contributing factor to a lot of the stone that we find. And this is from the gneiss. The serpentine from the same area. You get these varying stones now. You have gneiss. They're all silicious in this area now. This is all silica-based stone. It's not limestone up here. You're up in the mountains now, high mountains. So this is all silicious. And once again, you can see the landscape gets much more dramatic. There's not even the Italian Alps. Also, the Porfido comes from this area, and Valle Camonica. These mountain ranges, by virtue of what Porfido is a mountain range of very, very old volcanoes. It lends itself, obviously, towards the visual qualities of stone itself. See, once again, quite beautiful. So just as a quick recap, we have Botticino Classico and Botticino Fiorito. This is what the quarry looks like. There is a soundtrack to this, but for some reason I'm not able to really get it to the volume that you can hear it. And it's probably better because I think what I have to tell you about this is probably more important than the music. As you can see, not unlike any other quarry you've probably been to, there's strata or benches or layers within the quarry itself. And why this is particularly important with Botticino is that the Botticino folks, hundreds of years ago, decided that they were going to carefully catalog and classify and map all their quarries. So where the stone came from, particularly within the location, in depth, and horizontal location of the quarry, was very important for them to record. It wasn't just about inventory. They had the sense that in the future, there would be a need to replace stone on monuments that were built out of this stone. So what's wonderful about that is, for instance, one of the wonderful monuments that we have in the United States, which is Grand Central Station, and one of our colleagues, Fabio Bomardi, was instrumental in the supply of the stone that was used in the restoration of Grand Central Station. And it was a precise match, because it was a precise match because they knew where that stone came from Grand Central Station. They had the records. I'd love to see the records. I'm sure it's recorded in that gorgeous Italian cursive that we always see from some of the older documents. And it identified where the stone came from for the Grand Central Station. So therefore, they could identify a deeper, or I should say the same bench in a horizontal strata in terms of its color influence. A little bit, deeper in terms of the horizontal location, because obviously much of that stone has since been extracted. But it's the reason why they were able to absolutely replicate the eastern stairway in Grand Central Station in the large waiting room, which didn't exist. They never built the eastern stairway. They only built the western one. Unless you are looking very carefully at the architectural details, which aren't as articulated, you'd never know the difference. It looks like it's one of the original staircases, and that's directly attributable to the good record keeping and the habit of Botticino and Classico in particular. Brescia Aurora, of course, that's one of our quarries as well, and you can see here that the let me get this to start. This is one of our quarries for Brescia, and I love watching this because we're dropping a bench, and if you've ever been present when that happens, and you get the concussion that you feel at the bottom of the soles of your feet when that bench drops, it's quite unforgettable. And it's a marvelous thing to watch. To watch the technicians who are using, with the exception of the wire saws, a very ancient practice of extracting natural stone from the earth. It's primordial. It's what makes it so wonderful. The Orobic, once again, that's a shot of the quarry. You can even see in the raw cut of the side of that hill, the side of the mountain, some of the red characteristics and the wonderful qualities of the layers in that stone. Chapter di Greco. This is the area of the lake Lago di Zeo, where I said it was right on the shore, and I wasn't kidding. That's exactly where they're quarrying the stone. A lot of that is surface quarrying. You can also see very, very slightly, if you look towards the center of that photograph, you can see there's also a cave opening. So they also have some gallery excavations going on. This is in Sarnico for the sandstone. Also for the gneiss, going further up the area. And for the serpentine, very similar within the same region. And then the porphyry, and balacamonica. And you see those are pretty good size extracted pieces, which is not necessarily common for if you're lucky, you'll get big boulders. That's what's particularly characteristic about the porphyry from Lombardy. You can get big slabs. Once again, in the selection, this is what really where I think, for those of us especially who are looking at the requirements and the program of the project, where the rubber hits the road. Botticino Classico, as I said, is very, very dense, very slight traces of magnesium, but it's a very dense quality to the stone. The grains are very fine, so you're able to do very fine carvings, and it's very nice to work with, irrespective of the fact that it's very, very dense, hard. But what's particularly noteworthy here, for those of you who are looking at exterior cladding, and for thin, relatively thin cladding pieces, for exterior cladding, as thin as inch and a quarter, 300 millimeters. It's only 0.14% absorption. You'd have to go pretty far to find some granites that reach that. I mean, even the Botticino Fiorito is 0.37 absorption. And that's pretty much the range that you'll find with most granites. So it's a wonderful material. When you have freeze-thaw cycles, it's not normally thought of in most circles in the United States as being an exterior cladding material. But in terms of its performance, it has different visual qualities, obviously, than Indiana limestone. If you were to use on the same building Indiana limestone, you'd probably have to go to 3 inches thick before you get anywhere near the kind of performance that you would get from a piece of Botticino at 1.25 inches thick. As I said, it's very wonderful to work with, and one of the finishes that we're trying to promote and use for within the same building to use, and on the exterior to use the same finish, I should say same stone, same bench, same part of the quarry with a different finish on it. That's one piece of stone that you're looking on the left-hand side. That's not two pieces that have a seam. That's a masking mark. On the right-hand side, we have our setta finish, which is a light brush finish, which brings out the features without polishing the stone, but it brings out the features better than a home finish would. And on the left-hand side, we have what we call the raffiata finish, which you could really see the tool marks in the stone. It has a sort of ancient quality to it. But if you have a building where you're looking to get different effects, let's say between the siding or the cladding of the building in the field and the feature strips that you might want to put around window surrounds or friezes or finials or spires on the building, and you want those to be of a different color, you can use the same stone with different finishes. And as you can see on the slide on the right, it's wonderful to work with. I've mentioned this already about the cataloging on the upper left-hand side of that conglomerate or array of photographs. You'll see the wall from Grand Central Station, the Upper right-hand corner is from what used to be a civic building. It's now a shopping mall. The recycling of the materials because their longevity. You know, being able to do an adaptive reuse of a building once again and take replacement stones and bring them into the same project. You're allowed to do that, and you can do that and match the stone perfectly because of the record keeping that I spoke about. Brescia Aurora, here's another application. This happens to be right outside from where Stefano is sitting right now. That's our elevator shaft at our headquarters with a green feature running up the side of the elevator shaft. But Brescia Aurora is pretty amazing stuff. Once again, it's a limestone, sedimentary stone, and it's wonderful because of its visual qualities in terms of being able to book match it, diamond match it. It's a virtual Rorschach test. You could probably do a whole book of Rorschach tests out of Brescia. I went right past the Moscato. We talked a lot about that, but also the Ceppo. Once again, is has a particular quality to it, and visually it has its purposes. I like to refer to it as nature's terrazzo. As we know, terrazzo is where you take marble fragments that have been ground up, and we put it together in a cementitious binder, which creates terrazzo floors, and we finish it. Ceppo, and particularly Ceppo de Grey, is nature's terrazzo. It's basically the same thing, except it's been formed by the hand of nature in its form that you see it. The Sarnico, once again, the sandstone can be tooled very nicely, and has a nice homogeneous visual quality to it. You can do very nice things along tooling of the edges, using it in droving, which you see quite a lot in the United States, or bush hammering. And then there's the gneiss. And it's, as I said, it's sold as granite, but it's not granite. It's just just wonderful stuff visually, and you can use it the same way. On the left is a mausoleum of gneiss. The pieces that you see on the right are not too far away from where I'm standing down in the World Trade Center. The architects use this in contrast with the granite. The granite is all over the sidewalks, but at the building entrances, they decided to use this particular gneiss. And we've been able to identify it as being from Volmalenico. And it's you can see, and I do this all the time, the photograph on the left is standing with the camera at my waist, or my phone at my waist. I'm looking down. And that's the way most of us would witness it. I mean, unless you're going to be walking around on your hands and knees publicly, which not too many people do. But you can see, and really understanding the scale of the stone is to put a scale up against it. That's my architect scale that I carry around with me all the time. And it's in, you can see that it's in the imperial measure. But you can see along the 1 inch measure, the size of the grain. It's fine, okay, but it's not that fine. It's a little bit more dense than you see in granite. And it's what gave them the architectural contrast that they wanted to set off the entrance from the sidewalk. Botticino, Milenico, and then once again, porphyry, because it's so dense, so hard, using it for countertops, it's indestructible. It doesn't stain. It's not like some other stone that you might love to see in a kitchen or bathroom. It's very hard to cut, but it's virtually indestructible. Somebody had asked me, he said, well, can I use that on my countertop without, this is also true to a degree of quartzite. Do I have to use a cutting board on my countertop if I use porphyry? I said, not if you like your knives. It will destroy your knives. That's how hard it is. It's just, you're not going to even get a scratch out of it. As you can see from these figures, it's become a high compression rate. and very high flexural strength. Once again, look at that water absorption rate, 0.21. Even as dense and as hard as this stone is, Botticino beats it in that regard. Porphyry is very expensive. You wouldn't necessarily clad an entire building in porphyry. I don't know too many budgets out there that would allow you to do that, but you can get good performance out of it for furnishings and artwork. So to recap, once again, we have Botticino, high density type 3 limestone, the Brescia and Orobic for the calcareous stones, and for the siliceous stones, the sandstone, the gneiss, and the serpentino, and the porphyry. Here are some applications, the last module that we'll be reviewing. This is the extension that was designed by Mario Botta. We were the design team on the stone aspect and worked with Mario Botta to put together for Botticino what they have subcategorized within this extension project. And this is the extension for La Scala. The ellipse contains offices and some rehearsal spaces, and the tower is really the fly tower, the extended and expanded tower for the performance space itself, and contains more rehearsal space in addition to the fly space that contains much more scenes than the older original fly space would contain. So there you see them side by side in terms of their material thickness. The material thickness here is a ventilated wall. Once again, this is Botticino Classico. You can see what Botta wanted. He did not want to see a homogeneous looking piece. He's mostly known for his brick buildings, but he wanted stone. It's holding up very well now. Stefano, this is like 20 years, more than 20 years in existence.
Yes, indeed. Already 20 years have passed, and the building has been there without any problem. I mean, the Botticino is there to represent the beauty and the consistency and the solidness of this hard limestone.
Yeah, and the thickness, once again, this is 300 millimeters thick. This is, inch and a quarter thick.
Sorry, it's 30 millimeter, 3 centimeter.
Oh, 3 centimeters, okay. So, well, I said 300 millimeters, right? In any event, I'm sorry I made that mistake. You can see a little bit of the features of this project in this video on the side. Once again, that's the ellipse. You can see it right next to the tower. We actually developed the Brie-Soleil curved path with Mario Botta in conjunction with our construction partners. It's not what the section behind it. And Botticino Fiorito, once again, being used on an exterior cladding where, a more monolithic, without grain painting in stone. Brescia Aurora being used in, particularly in interiors, quite gorgeous stone. Once again, lends itself to ornamental applications, especially for book matching, diamond matching. And you'll see in this project, which is the hotel in Kosovo. This is the Emerald Hotel, And it's a very fine project in terms of the featuring of this particular material. We were able to take the applications for the Brescia and pretty much create what I would like to say are oriental carpets, this material, because of how well we were able to match it, to be able to display the features of the stone itself, in the matching and the laying of the stone, the dry laying, carefully cataloging and mapping the stone, the areas within the project itself. I think it's one of the advantages of working with a quarrier who is also a fabricator. You know, in this particular case, this is our quarry, and we're fabricating the stone. And so in selecting the blocks, we can help the architects and the designers actually get the visual quality that they're looking for through the fabrication with a single thread of project responsibility. And you can see on the right-hand side slide how that dry lay works out. Stefano, what size were the actual slabs that?
Well, let's say we used, of course, several sizes. A typical dimension was like 80 centimeter by 60, which is, let's say, 24 by 36, roughly between 80 and 90 centimeter. But again, we also tried, especially in the larger areas, to use big sizes, like even 4 by 2, 4 by 2.5. About, of course, this was all tailor-made, made according. Let's say the decision was to follow the natural dimension of the random slabs in order to get the best output in terms of cut-to size, and of course, anyway, considering some reasonable dimension which could be packed and handled without too much of a risk.
So you can see by virtue of some of the samples that I just, you know, this is on various ratios that we have. You know, that's the Brescia Aurora Blue, just like the first sample that I held up, but obviously from a different part of the slab. It's wonderful stuff, and it's particular to Lombardy. The Orobic Orobico, also gorgeous in terms of its use because of its visual feature in book matching and diamond matching. What I particularly like about this particular slide is in the center photograph, look at how you were able to take the architects and designers on this. They were able to take the seam, put it right on the outside corner of that column, and, you know, render a square or rectangular column into a very unique architectural form by virtue of the material itself, by book matching the stone, not on a flat surface though, but on the outside corner. This is wonderful stone for cladding within interior and for floors. Chapeau de Grès, very, very dense, hard material here used for the interior, high traffic areas, places that get a beating in washrooms and lavatories, kitchens. It's wonderful material. This is the Sarnico sandstone in a medieval application, of course, much thicker stone. And that same photograph that I showed you about a half hour ago in the mausoleum. This is the interior of the mausoleum and chapel, but also the gneiss being used for exterior cladding. In thinner pieces, they've used gneiss in this particular region for roof shingle, for ceiling shingle, you know, instead of slate, which we would use particularly in the United States. And of course, slate also being a siliceous material, the gneiss is an even stronger material, and you can see the architects for the siding chose to emulate a lap siding that you would, maybe a wood shingle They've done it in stone, which would obviously have a much longer life than wood. But I love this application on the right-hand side too, for the nice. Same thing with this Serpentino for this laboratory. And then, paving. I mean, this is the Campidoglio, of course, in Rome. And that porphyry paving has been there for 500 years. I don't think that they've replaced a single piece of it. It lends itself towards the permanence that I spoke to once before, a whole natural stone, but in this particular case of porphyry in general. Botticino Classico for exterior cladding as well as interior flooring. Same thing for the Fiorito. Once again, the Brescia material. The Orobic, flooring, interior cladding. The Ceppo di Gre. Once again, nature's terrazzo. And the sandstone. Obviously, in a much thicker application on a medieval application, then a much thinner application on this ventilated exterior cladding. So nice on the interior and on the exterior. Here for paving inside. The Serpentino for train station in Sondrio, I believe, restored from the 1930s. Stone natural stone is particularly wonderful because of how long it lasts, how it endures over time. And then of course, those are the columns within St. John the Lateran in Rome, the Pope's Cathedral. A lot of people think that St. Peter's is the Pope's Cathedral. That's a basilica. Pope's Cathedral is St. John the Lateran. And that is the oldest baptismal font in all of Rome. And at least in terms of continuous use, I'm going to venture to say probably in all the world. And those columns are from Porphyro. We're looking at a baptistry that was built by Constantine. On the left-hand side, you can see that sarcophagus, just thousands of years old, and it probably looks like the day it was carved. It's wonderful. Once again, Porphyro in terms of the high traffic areas. And just to recap, we went over the geological formation once again, the calcareous, the silicious stones, the differences between the sedimentary stone, the metamorphic, the igneous qualities, the geographic locations, those wonderful places in Lombardy that we all hope to visit in person once again very soon if we can, and how to select the stone by virtue of its mechanical qualities and the applications of all of those. I'd like each of you once again to reiterate, if you've registered through the Marble Lock site, to put your AIA number in or email them to me at art, A-R-T, at Gherardi, GHIRARDI.IT, and I'll be sure that you get your credits. Are there any questions?
Some more information about the use of Botticino Classico on external cladding. Well, as we have highlighted, Botticino families, we have Botticino Classico and Botticino Fiorito, belong to type 3 hard limestone, dense limestones. Therefore, they are absolutely pretty much suitable for external cladding. We know that most of architects, designers, they focus most of their specifications on, let's say, what we conventionally call granite. Anyway, we have a good evidence of successfully executed, as Art has just shared in our presentation, of significant projects all over the world with Botticino in 30 millimeter, unless, of course, there are some different building coding in place. like in New York on external, where we all know we need to use a 2 inches thick stone. For the rest, let's say, I mean, there are no contrary reasons to use Botticino for an external cladding all over the world.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that, even though New York City has a 2-inch code requirement, that in the Hudson Yards project, they were able to use 1.5-inch thick material. And, you say, okay, well, it's just a 1/2-inch difference. But when you're looking at, quantity of slab, weight, dead load of the stone itself, and upon anchorages and anchorage systems, that 1/2 inch makes a big difference in the quality of the project and also the budget of the project. So it was used because the engineers could demonstrate to the building department and get a memo, a technical memo that would allow them to use it on the project. So if you have the time for those approvals, you should really look at the performance of the material and not waste the material. It really goes towards the sustainability of all of the materials that we're using as design architects and engineers, which is a perfect segue for me to encourage you to speak to Jean-Louis from our office. Thank you very much.